Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. Peel police releasing stunning video today in hopes of catching a suspect wanted for a brazen car theft in Mississauga. The video shows a woman running over a man with his own car as she speeds away in it. The whole ordeal caught on security cameras. Brittany Billette reports.
It starts off like a normal meeting for a potential car sale. The suspect arriving at the victim's home for an appointment to see a 2002 Porsche Cayenne. She rings the doorbell and asks about the vehicle, then gets in the car for a closer look. But suddenly, she reverses, hits the owner, and speeds off with the car. Not long ago, I had a chance to speak to the victim. He didn't want to be recorded on camera, worried that he would be targeted again. But what he did say was that he was tricked. He says the day before, someone spoke to him on the phone, and that person was a man. And then the suspect had said her dad was coming to see the car as well. Also, not seen in the video is that at one point, the suspect and the victim were in the vehicle together. That's when she asks him to pop the hood so that she can see the engine. That's when he steps out, walks around the vehicle, and she backs up and hits him. He confirmed that the tires did go over his legs, but thankfully nothing was broken. He does confirm that he was injured. Injuries to his hands, his knees, and his elbow. This happened on September 6th at 2 p.m. near Winston Churchill and Eglinton near Mississauga. The suspect had responded to an ad on Auto Trader. Now police are asking for the public's help finding her.
We just urge anyone that may have seen anyone else who was with the suspect at the time and that may have further descriptions or any information really in relation to these vehicles to please contact our investigations. Again, the extension this time for auto theft is 1152.
She's described as a South Asian female, 5'5" and 120 pounds. She has a thin build, long brown hair, brown eyes, and was wearing a white long-sleeve shirt, brown skirt, and leather-strapped sandals. Police believe this was the car she drove to the house in.
The suspect initially arrived in a metallic blue BMW X5. So that's the vehicle that the suspect, we believe, arrived in. And when the suspect takes off in the victim's vehicle, in the white Porsche Cayenne, there's a vehicle that's parked behind it, a gray SUV, which we believe is a Bentley SUV that takes off after the suspect takes off. So we believe those vehicles to be associated to the suspect.
Police are warning the public to be careful when they're making online transactions. They're encouraging local residents to use buy and sell zones located at Peel Regional Police Divisions just outside. Brittany Billette, CBC News, Mississauga.
Police in York Region are investigating after 2 people were shot and killed in a park. It happened this morning in the town of Keswick. Tyler Cheese has more from the scene.
York Regional Police have been on scene here at Bayview Park in Keswick for most of the day. It's here that 2 people died in a double shooting around 7:30 this morning.
We received a call for the sounds of gunshots in the area of Bayview Avenue and Lowndes Avenue in Keswick. When officers arrived, 2 adults were located in Bayview Park suffering from gunshot wounds and were pronounced deceased at the scene.
Police have not shared any more details about the 2 victims at this time, but they are asking the public's help to identify a suspect or suspects in the shooting. In spite of that, police also believe this was an isolated incident and there's no threat to public safety. They did not explain why they believe so.
Our homicide unit is engaged, and we are appealing to members of the community if they have any dash cam footage of the area at the time or security cameras at their house to please contact investigators.
The park borders a quiet residential area with neighbors telling us that lots of people walk their dogs here in the morning. They say they're especially concerned that the shooting took place at such an early hour.
Essentially, at 7:30 approximately in the morning, I heard 4 gunshots, and then shortly thereafter another 3. It sounded like it was from 2 different maybe guns. It's extremely surprising. You never think that'll happen near your house. I've lived here for 6 years. Other neighbors that I've talked to have lived here for 20 years. They've never seen anything remotely like this. It's a good neighborhood.
Police say they'll remain present in the area for some time as the investigation continues. Tyler Cheese, CBC News, Keswick.
Toronto police have now identified the 2 people killed in a shooting on Tuesday as 26-year-old Ibrahim Handul and 27-year-old Deshaun Walters. The shooting happened at a community housing complex near Driftwood Avenue and Jane Street yesterday afternoon. Chris Glover has the latest.
The crime scene tape is gone, but the command post from police remains here, and a lot of officers I've seen throughout the morning walking around, knocking on doors, trying to canvass for any witnesses who have information about what happened yesterday right inside of this complex. We know that 2 people were shot and killed. One of them was pronounced dead here on scene. The other one was pronounced dead in hospital. This has certainly rocked this neighborhood, dealing with this daytime shooting. A lot of folks being reminded of what happened here back in February when 2 people were shot. One of them, a father, was killed at a bus stop just a day apart from each other. And now here we are again several months later, and folks are dealing with 2 more daytime shootings here after police say there was some sort of altercation in this parking lot, but they say that their investigation is continuing. And a lot of folks are now shifting to what is causing all the gun violence that we're seeing, not just in this neighborhood, but across the city. And I have the youth violence coordinator from the Jane and Finch Center, not far from where we're standing. What do you think it is that needs to happen today in the aftermath of a shooting like what we saw yesterday?
Absolutely. I think my first and foremost is to express my deepest and sincere condolences to the families and individuals affected. One of the things that we're doing at the Jane and Finch Center as one of the leading youth agencies in Jane and Finch right now is trying to offer supports for the youth, expanding capacities, expanding on our mental health programming as well, getting youth to be able to speak on matters like this, how it affects them, and how we are going to be moving and going.
Why is that mental health piece so important?
Mental health is part of our day-to-day. I don't think we could wake up and forget it. One of the things that we're proud to say at the Jane Finch Center is that we've done one-on-one and group therapy. As a resident myself and someone studying Gestalt psychotherapy, that's one of the things that it was an issue for me growing up as well. How can we talk about sensitive issues? How can we connect with our peers and open up conversations? How can we connect with our community members and express how we truly feel?
We're also hearing from a lot of folks that in order to crack down on gun violence in the city, this is something that we've talked about so many times, there needs to be a better emphasis on getting kids jobs, getting kids education. What do you think needs to be done on that front to try to make sure that more kids are diverted away from a life of crime and violence and into more productive areas?
Absolutely, and I believe a lot of those solutions has to come at a systemic level. Holistically, we need to have more supports for youth. Jane and Finch has the largest youth population. So with that being said, we need to expand capacities for programming, trauma-informed care being counseling, grief counseling, one-on-one therapy. How are we getting youth to start talking about what's really going on? How can we get them comfortable to not only talk about this when tragic incidents happen? So that's one of the things at Jane and Finch Center that we're trying to address, connecting with our youth leaders and stakeholders in the community from grassroots to other agencies is one of our main priorities and a key part to growing and understanding what youth violence means in different communities.
Okay, well, it's important work what you're doing. Thank you so much for talking with me today. And obviously, counseling and trauma counseling is something that is very important to the people in this neighborhood. There's actually on-site trauma counseling here as well. And the command post we know is going to be here for the next little while as the investigation continues here from the scene. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
People from Grassy Narrows First Nation in northwestern Ontario were joined by hundreds of supporters as they marched to Queen's Park today. The demonstrators pushing for action decades after their river was first poisoned with mercury. Ali Chiasson has more.
Hundreds of people, many of whom are from the Indigenous community of Grassy Narrows, have descended upon Queen's Park. They're here reiterating their demand for compensation for the decades-long poisoning of their river. Mercury had been dumped into the water in the 1960s and 70s by a paper mill that still operates today. Grassy Narrows residents have been suffering the effects of mercury poisoning ever since.
It's a progressive disease. So like as you get older, you get more and more symptoms. So a lot of the symptoms are like tremors. Like for myself, I'm starting to have a hard time walking.
Rally organizer Chrissy Isaacs says the effects aren't just physical.
We have lost so many people to that were suffering with depression and that committed suicide. And like the youngest that I know of was like being 11 years old.
As ralliers reiterate their demands, both the province and the federal government reiterate that they take this seriously. And, quote, what happened to the people of Grassy Narrows is a tragedy. All levels of government must work together to do better for Indigenous people. But remediation of the river is ongoing, and so is the construction of that mercury poisoning care home the federal government promised.
The mining and the extractive industries, especially in the north, has gone so far, and we have done nothing for so long. And so to your point, there is now generations of young people, babies, aunties, uncles, and elders who are all facing the harm of mercury poisoning.
In July, the Grassy Narrows First Nation filed a lawsuit against the province, saying they should have been consulted on development plans for future mill and mining projects.
As Anishinaabe people, I've watched so many water walks happen, and for me, being in solidarity with Grassy Narrows and seeing this kind of show up from so many organizations, Canadians, community members, as well as community from Grassy Narrows has been really amazing.
Advocacy for Grassy Narrows will get louder and larger until justice is brought to that community. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Bombshell news in the world of Canadian sports. Rogers Communications has reached a deal to buy Bell's stake in Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. As a result, Rogers now has 75% total interest in MLSE. Jamie Strachan takes a look at what this $4.7 billion deal means for Canadian sports fans.
If owning Toronto teams was a sport, Rogers would be a champion. If it involves a puck or ball played on a court, diamond, or pitch, Rogers now owns it after a massive $4 billion deal with Bell.
It was a big shift for Bell to get out of that space. And I think it has potential to be very good, but now it's on Rogers.
It gives debt-ridden Bell much-needed cash and breaks up rivals Bell and Rogers' shared ownership of some of Canada's most storied franchises.
Which I always likened to Coke and Pepsi owning a team together is extremely unusual.
Rogers already owns the Toronto Blue Jays. This deal makes it the majority owner of the Raptors, Argos, Toronto FC, and the crown jewel, the Toronto Maple Leafs.
We've been very blessed with the support that we get from ownership. We don't expect that to change with today's news.
Well, fans would like some change, more winning to start.
Now they're owning everything. Let's see what happens. I think it could be beneficial, but they got to bring the championships. That's what fans want to see.
This deal may make perfect business sense for Bell and Rogers, but what about for fans? Will they notice a difference in the product on the ice, on the court, on the field, and how they watch their favorite teams at home? While Rogers could spend more money on the Raptors, there's a salary cap in the NHL, and the cable giant has never been one of the top spenders in baseball.
In sports, owners' objectives is not necessarily the same as the fans' objectives. The owners, in this case now Rogers, want content. They want profits. They don't necessarily want championships. Those might be too expensive for them.
There's also the question of how the games of all these teams will be broadcast. For now, business as usual. Rogers' broadcast deal with the NHL still has 2 years to go. But with more and more streaming services like Apple and Prime scooping up sports properties, that could change.
Rogers might be able to have a little bit more leverage than without Bell at the table and having to come up with some joint arrangement. But I think it's going to ultimately weaken the traditional media rights groups, regardless of who owns the team.
That remains to be seen. Whatever happens, there is a new king of sport in Canada. Jamie Strachan, CBC.
Welcome back. The eyes of the culinary world were on Toronto tonight as the Michelin Guide unveiled its selections for the best of the best in our food scene for 2024. And this year, for the first time, the tire maker turned tastemaker awarded stars beyond the city limits, shining a light on culinary excellence in the greater region. Del Manukduk has this story.
It's been a year since Georgian restaurant Tiflisi was awarded a Michelin Bib Gourmand. When they first got word via email, they thought it was spam.
I realized it was something serious. I told my parents, my mom, who is a chef, my dad, he's a sous chef, and then they couldn't believe it.
Bib Gourmand is a designation given to select restaurants that offer good quality food for good value, often known as the secret inspector's fave dining spots. The Beaches restaurant opened in 2021, fighting through pandemic restrictions, but it was all worth it.
I think in terms of number, if we take year to year increase, I would say close to 20 to 25%, you know, not maybe even more.
Tiflisi maintained its Bib Gourmand status.
Conejo Negro from Toronto.
4 new restaurants were added to that select list this year, including Conejo Negro.
We've been doing this for a long time, and we just want to provide good food, good service, let everybody have a good time.
From Collingwood to Niagara, Cambridge to Scarborough.
New this year is the addition of restaurants outside of Toronto.
It's not only about Toronto itself, but Toronto and region. New areas to discover, new culinary offers to dive into, new experiences to enjoy.
Round of applause for this.
Banking 2 awards, including the Young Chef Award and a Michelin star, was Hexagon from Oakville.
In the culinary world, like, there's no higher regard than a Michelin star, and like to have that in our grasp now is like, I don't know what to say. It's like I'm in shock.
Michelin inspectors apply 5 criteria, including product quality, cooking techniques, harmony of flavors, the personality of the chef in the food, and consistency over time and across the entire menu. On top of Oakville's Hexagon, 3 other establishments received a single star, including restaurants in Toronto, Simcoe County, and the Niagara region. Every addition to the Michelin list raises Toronto's standing in the food scene. According to a study by Destination Toronto, visitors spent $2 billion in 2023 in the food and beverage sector.
When people come for a culinary trip here, if they really want to eat their way around the city, they might eat at 1 or 2 or 3 Michelin restaurants, but then the rest of their trip, they're eating at restaurants all throughout the city. So it's benefiting restaurants that are in the guide, but also the restaurants that aren't.
As someone who tried some of the food on this list, you won't be disappointed. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
The city's Aga Khan Museum is turning 10 this year. It's celebrating with its latest exhibit, showcasing a decade of the museum's history. Here's a look.
It's an exhilarating moment in the history of our museum. We want to showcase Muslim cultures in their interconnectedness with other cultures, and in the process foster intercultural understanding and empathy. You often have museums where people feel this is a thing of the past. But the way we look at our museum and even at our Islamic art collection is to always foreground the timeless and the universal relevance of the stories, the wisdoms, the experiences that are caught up in these objects.
Light is both a representation of kind of spiritual light, but as well as light like enlightenment and knowledge and understanding. And the museum was always intended to be a beacon of education, of passing on knowledge and understanding.
We have had over 1 million visitors to the museum, and we have taught tens of thousands of students on the site and in the museum, and over 600,000 students online. It is a space where people feel they are welcome, they belong, and they can have conversations and encounters that in this complex world might not be that easy and available anywhere else.
Finally tonight, 2 lucky people woke up this morning with their lives forever changed after winning in Tuesday's record-breaking $80 million Lotto Max draw. There were 2 winning tickets for the jackpot, one sold here in Ontario in Grey County and the other in Quebec, splitting the prize to $40 million each. 24 Max Millions were also up for grabs, with one ticket worth $500,000 sold in Toronto, as well as one sold in Whitby. The jackpot ballooned to a record $80 million after no winner was selected in last week's $75 million draw. And Chris, you know, I bought a ticket. I did not win, but hey, we're all winning with this forecast.
100%. I bought a ticket as well. And there's nothing better than getting up in the morning after the draw and scanning it and then going, winner, Gagno. Oh, it's $2.
I know, me too.
You can play again. That's what happens. But you bring up a great point. We are winning in this forecast. As I mentioned before, September has been very dry. We've only featured 2 days with rainfall, and that was minimal. And daytime highs and overnight lows have been about 5-6 degrees above normal for the past 9 days. And we're going to add a couple more of those kind of days in the forecast, which is once again above that normal daytime high of 20. 9 is your overnight low. Today, temperatures we're basically peaking in the mid-20s, anywhere from 23 to 27. Didn't feel overly muggy as well. It felt as high as maybe 30 in some locales. We did feature a little bit of cloud through the afternoon across the GTA and the Golden Horseshoe, thanks to a system kind of stuck across the mid-Atlantic states. But high pressure extends from the American Midwest through Ontario, through the Great Lakes, and into the American Northeast. And that's where it will remain in place for tomorrow. Friday into the weekend, that's when the weather pattern has to go ahead and collapse a little bit, but it's not all bad news, far from it. Clear and quiet through the overnight with just a few passing clouds. As we get into Thursday afternoon, magnificent sunshine across the board, across our forecast region, and we're going to hold on to clear, quiet conditions through the overnight and into the day on Friday. We will feature a little bit of cloud through Friday afternoon. This is thanks to a system tracking across the upper Great Lakes. That's where the rain will be focused. For us, we just escape with some mid to high level cloud. But it's Friday night and into Saturday that these showers, although they are breaking apart as they migrate towards the east, they will still hold together at least across the Lake Huron and Georgian Bay shoreline. As they advance down towards the city, they should be breaking apart, but we still at least have a slight risk of kind of mid to late morning showers. And then we start to see that cloud clear out nicely, and we're back into sunshine. And it looks like we're going to hold on to sunshine for Sunday as well. So a great looking weekend. Temperatures for the overnight. 15 in Toronto, 15, 16 in Windsor. A little bit cooler to the north, obviously. Daytime highs tomorrow will once again be very similar to what we experienced today, basically in the mid-20s. And we're going to hold on to those mid-20 highs as we step forward through the entire weekend. We'll average 25, which is once again about 5 degrees higher than normal. But the overnight lows are kind of what's more noticeable, in the mid-teens, maybe even the upper teens. Saturday, once again, a slight chance of a brief morning shower. It's Sunday night and into Monday that the weather pattern kind of cools off, and we're allowed showers, if not periods of light rain, for Monday sometime during the day.
All right. Thanks so much, Chris.
You got it.